Hello, this is Stacy Bell with the University of Findlay, EDUC 552. Increasing positive attitudes for high school student participation in physical education. Many researchers have found a correlation between positive experiences and attitudes in physical education classes. As future leaders of society, it is important for adolescents to find value and meaning in physical education so they will maintain a healthy lifestyle. Not all students have a positive attitude toward physical education, which can lead to poor motivation and behavioral issues. Students that have had negative experiences in physical education classes in the past can cause animosity in high school physical education. This can cause students to have low level of motivation and negative attitudes. Teachers can learn a great deal about teaching and learning by listening to students talk about their experiences. Lackman, 2017. By the time students reach high school physical education, they lose motivation and positive attitudes. Large class sizes of 45 students or more can make it difficult to keep students motivated with positive attitudes. The large class size also limits the instructor's ability to interact with each individual student, which can cause a lack of student connectivity to the course. Negative attitudes can lead to discipline problems, lower grades, and poor relationships between students and their teachers. Lack of motivation for physical education can lead to a sedentary lifestyle, which can turn into unhealthful weight gain, obesity, and other life-threatening illnesses. By separating students into smaller groups by single gender and coeducational settings, this can improve overall attitude and motivation during physical education. The hypothesis for this study is that if students are separated by gender in small co-ed groups, then student motivation and attitudes will improve. When the students are in smaller groups, they feel more connected to their teacher and to their peers. And when splitting into gender-separated groups, students will be able to feel less judged by the opposite gender and will have a positive experience in physical education. The null hypothesis is if students are not separated into smaller groups, then attitudes and motivation will not improve. The independent variable for this study is identified as gender separation, 23 females and 27 males. Co-ed groups, which is identified as small groups of 25 students each. And teacher interaction, which is considered connecting with the students in a positive manner, saying hello daily, asking about their extracurricular activities, and genuinely showing interest in that student's life. The dependent variables for this study are attitudes and motivation of students, which would be monitored through observation and a student survey. Review of the literature. Students who have negative attitudes toward physical education are categorized into three main groups: those that feel alienated, those who lack control, and those who lack personal meaning toward the subject. Carlson, 1995. If needs for autonomy, relatedness, and competence are not met, it will result in low motivation and avoidance. Researchers have found that peers influence behavior and attitude in physical education. Peers who encourage and motivate one another are more active in class, according to Bibick, 2007. Students who do not dress for class are not successful in certain activities or sports, and have a poor relationship with the instructor can have negative influence on their peers. In coeducational settings, males tend to dominate. In single gender settings, females are better at understanding and analyzing emotions in physical education class than boys. When split into single gender groups, boys may be less distracted by girls, and girls may help improve each other's self-esteem by empathizing with each other. Peer groups have an influence on student attitude and behavior depending on age. Middle school students favored single-sex educational settings, while high school students preferred coeducational settings. Research design methods. The purpose of the research was to measure students' attitude and motivation towards physical education class and towards physical education. There were 3 instruments that were utilized to gather data. Student questionnaire, which was given after a physical activity was completed. Student observations, which occurred over a 2-week period during 3 separate activities. And student interviews, which were selected at random after a class activity. A description of the sample. This was conducted during the 2017-2018 school year at a rural high school in Northwest Ohio that serves 432 students. The sample consisted of 50 sophomore students in 1 physical education class, 23 females, 27 males. This class met 4 times per week. 3 of those days were for 41 minutes and once a week for 82 minutes. All classes were first period of the day, which ran from 8:05 to 8:46 a.m. on a regular traditional school day, and from 8:05 to 9:31 on the once a week 82-minute block day. The class was co-taught by 2 physical education teachers, 1 male and 1 female. The validity, threats to internal validity included maturation of the class, instructional styles of the 2 educators, students who were absent, injuries which caused students to have to sit out of the activity, the different peer groups that were in this particular class of the semester, and attitudes towards the instructors. Data collection. Observations were continuous over the span of 2 weeks over 3 different types of activities. We had a mile run that was conducted, a co-educational setting for volleyball, and single gender separated groups for weightlifting. The students were observed in 6 categories to determine the attitude and behavior toward that activity. And surveys were distributed to those who wished to complete them after the mile run. Not all students participated in those surveys, and at the end of that class period, the students were debriefed whether or not they took the survey. At the conclusion of the volleyball unit, 5 students were selected at random to participate in an in-depth examination and questionnaire of their attitude and behavior towards physical education. Results. The questionnaire featured 13 questions that surveyed student opinions of different aspects of physical education. The responses were condensed into 3 categories for each question: agree, neutral, and disagree. Questions 1 through 3. Question 1 was physical education helps me stay in shape. 10% of the students agreed, 31% were neutral, and 59% disagreed with that statement. Physical activity, being physically active helps reduce stress levels. 24% agreed with that statement, 27% disagreed, and 49% were neutral. Question 3, I enjoy physical education in the morning. 10% agreed with that statement, 19% were neutral, and 71% disagreed. Questions 4 through 6. Physical education improves my social skills. 4% agreed with that, 80% disagreed with that statement, and 16% were neutral. Physical education improves or helps my self-esteem. 15% agreed, 63% disagreed, and 22% were neutral. Physical education improves my mood. 11% agreed, 68% disagreed, and 21% were neutral. Questions 7 through 9. After team activities, I feel closer to my peers. 9% agreed, 76% disagreed, and 15% were neutral. After aerobic exercise, I gain energy. 4% agreed, 64% disagreed, and 32% were neutral. Question 9, physical education helps me relax. 18% agreed, 7% were neutral, and 75% disagreed with that statement. Questions 10 through 13. Being in one large group is enjoyable. 19% agreed, 28% disagreed, and 53% were neutral. Question 11, I enjoy co-ed groups. 50% agreed, 14% disagreed, and 36% were neutral. Question 12, I enjoy single gender groups. 7% agreed, 48% disagreed, and 45% were neutral. And finally, I prefer one large class instead of smaller groups. 14% agreed, 61% disagreed, and 25% of the students were neutral on that statement. The student observations, as previously stated, were conducted over a 2-week period over 3 separate student activities. This included the mile run, co-ed volleyball, and gender-separated weightlifting. For the mile run, we have the male and female results here. The males typically had a higher percentage participants in the activity of taking their jewelry off and of daily dress. Positive body language went down to 70%. Positive attitude and positive interactions with the instructor were between 70 and 80%. For the females, daily dress was down to 80%. Taking off jewelry was less than 70%, as well as participation in the activity. Positive body language, 80%. Positive attitude displayed, 85%. And positive interactions with the instructor were 80%. For weightlifting, the males had a high percentage of students that participated in the activity and took their jewelry off and dressed daily, but their positive interactions with the instructor, their positive attitude and body language was in the low 60s to mid 70s. Females, on the other hand, all dressed for class that day. They had a lower percentage of ladies that took off their jewelry, and positive body language and attitude was in the mid-90 range. And finally, the volleyball observation. They overall, for the males, positive interactions with the instructor, daily dress, taking jewelry off, and participation in activities were high. Positive attitude displayed and body language were still in between 70 and 90%. Females, on the other hand, 95% of the females participated in the activity and had positive body language and attitude. There was a lower percentage of females that took off their jewelry, that dressed daily, and had positive interactions with the instructor. Both instructors were volleyball coaches as well, so at times the positive interaction during volleyball is not always the greatest. The overall results of the observation showed that the females had a lower attitude during the volleyball unit and the mile run, but they had a higher attitude for the weightlifting, whereas males distributed lower positive attitude during the weightlifting and higher attitude with volleyball and the mile run. Discussion and future research. So after the study was completed, the results showed a relationship between class size, student and behavior, and attitudes. The students displayed positive behavior and attitudes when split into smaller co-ed groups as well as single gender groups. During the student interviews and debriefing, students mentioned the annoyance with a large class size and mixture of multiple clashing personalities. There were a few instances when splitting into single gender groups was not successful throughout the semester. And some students mentioned that they might enjoy physical education later in the school day when they have more energy. So in the future, this variable could be studied to increase motivation later on in the school day. And in conclusion, after the results of the study were analyzed, it showed that classroom attitudes and behavior is an issue with a larger class size. The results provided some evidence that students are observed enjoying class when they are separated into smaller groups. The effect of this problem is causing students to have unnecessary stress related to conflict within their peers. Due to this issue, students then have negative feelings associated with physical activity, causing lack of exercise, later on leading to obesity and other diseases. A suggestion would be to flip the end of the school day with the beginning of the school day to have sophomores later on in the day. And these are my resources. Thank you for watching my presentation.